President Biden and his closest confidants have reassured allies in recent days that he plans to run for re-election in 2024. This, according to the Washington Post, with one Democratic veteran saying, "I hear this question get asked every day. No one ever asked that question about Barack Obama. No one ever asked that question about Donald Trump." The report comes amid a turbulent time for Biden as poll numbers continue to spell bad news. A recent CBS YouGov poll asked voters how they thought things were going in the country. 70% said somewhat or very badly, while 30% said very or somewhat well. I think it's interesting he's confused about the question that people keep asking him, because wasn't it him that was saying, kind of making it unclear whether or not he would run again when he was running in the campaign and even shortly after getting the nomination for president? I mean, wasn't he kind of like...
And the whole, well, they didn't say this about Obama or Trump. That whole line is certainly false. I'm sure there's some horrible pundit. I bet we could Google it and find it, like, will Barack Obama even run for re-election? And will Donald Trump even run for re-election? I'm sure those articles exist and there's many versions of them. Maybe it's a little bit more widespread this time, but...
Well, if you said in 2017 as a Democrat that you thought Trump was going to serve out his first term, you were shouted down as a crank.
Right.
Like that was
exactly
that was considered to be impossible.
Yes.
Right.
So, but I think Kim, you're right. That what you picked up on is that Biden kept saying that he was kind of going to be a bridge. His presidency was going to be a bridge to the future. And he never straight up said that he was going to only serve one term, because nobody really ought to do that, because then they become a lame duck, January 20th at like 12:02. But he very clearly sent out the signals that he was going to serve these 4 years and be a bridge to the next generation of Democratic leaders. I never thought that was going to be the case. Like, people in politics don't give up power voluntarily. That's just even if they're completely losing their minds.
I think that their plan, the party's plan, was to pass the baton to Kamala Harris and to have her step in. But obviously she's less popular than him, so that's not a real viable option there. So maybe he's acting now like he doesn't remember, which I don't think is a good thing for Joe Biden to be acting like, why are you asking me these questions? This is kind of strange. But really, I think they're, now he's saying, of course I'm running again in 2024. And I think that they're just having to recover. What else are they going to do? They cannot pass the baton to Kamala Harris. They can't replace her.
And we forget that incumbency is a massive advantage. Name recognition is a massive advantage. Right. People who are sort of as plugged into politics as we are, the sort of pundit class who knows equally a lot about all the various candidates, do a lot of, well, this person might be stronger because of, X, Y, and Z thing having to do with their record. Just having someone who, people know who that is, it actually ends up being a huge advantage among the actual, voting population, which is not as closely keyed into the minute developments of politics. So swapping Biden, who has, huge, much more name recognition than Harris, and then Harris obviously having much more name recognition than virtually anyone else. There would be that would itself be a vote losing move unless he was just really, really unpopular, and they had maybe some celebrity Democrat or something, or some like a Donald. I mean, not like Donald Trump at all, but that level of popularity. Yeah, sure, run the Rock. That retire Biden to run the Rock, something like that. Except for that case, which I think is unlikely, it would not be a wise move.
And look, even with Biden's really low approval ratings at the moment, I don't see anyone else in the Democratic Party that could take on Donald Trump. I mean, if Trump ends up running again and getting the nomination in 2024, who else could go against him on the Democratic side? I still think Joe Biden, even with his unpopularity at the moment, would have a fighting chance against Trump.
Michelle Obama. You've said this before. It's Michelle Obama.
Michelle Obama. Okay, she would be the only other one. Right?
Yeah. Right. And I mentioned on the show the other day that Reagan was, extremely unpopular at this point in his, first term, also as old as Biden, basically. And a viewer noted to me that there were prominent Republicans at the time saying that he shouldn't run for re-election, that this is it, that he's an old guy, is a bridge, he should be a bridge to a future generation of leadership. Although at the time they also had the problem of George H.W. Bush, because that's not exactly what people meant as kind of the next generation of leadership. Nor was it really turning the page, because he was. It might sound strange, but he was the liberal, kind of balancing Reagan out on that particular ticket. So they have similar problems from a lot of different directions as Biden does this time. But because of those problems, as long as he's alive and functioning well enough, I think he is going to run. And like for Reagan, a lot of things could change. For Reagan, the economy turned around, and his policies got credit for that. Now there was no pandemic, so a lot of this is out of Biden's hands. If the Delta variant peters out, and 2 years from now, the pandemic is a memory that we're all very much hoping to not remember, then that bodes well for him. But if there's another variant, or if the Delta variant just keeps seasonally whipping around, and 2 years from now we're still talking about 1,000 people having died the day before, and 1,000 more dying today, and 1,000 dying tomorrow, then you're going to continue to have 70+% of people rightly say, no, things are not going well.
And I think it matters whether he's up against Trump or not, which is an open question very much at this point. And Trump decides to run and further. I mean, there's every reason to think he will further degrade and humiliate himself in a way that turns off this substantial number of people who would vote for Republican policies, who want Republican control of schools, who want critical race theory out of schools, who are sick of pandemic restrictions, but who cannot bring themselves to vote for Donald Trump himself. Exactly. Any other person with an R next to their name, but not Donald Trump. So we have to see.
I agree with that. I think anybody else might be able to defeat Biden, but Trump, I don't know. People really hate the guy. So, but we also want to talk about
Clinton's situation in a funny way.
Yeah, really. Also, the Post report comes amid worries about Biden's age, which we've been talking about. The president did have a routine physical last week, just before his 79th birthday. He's 79 now. Also on Friday, presidential powers were transferred to Kamala Harris for 85 minutes. She got to be president of the United States, while Biden received a routine colonoscopy. So more power to her, I guess, literally.
Went well. How was the Kamala Harris era for you guys?
Yeah, you just flash in the pan, unfortunately, for her. I don't know. It was very quick, very brief. Did she do anything? Because what's funny, in my home state of Idaho, the lieutenant governor and the governor hate each other. And so whenever the governor leaves the state, she gets the power right away, and she just unravels everything he does, like signs away. She signs all these executive orders, essentially undoing everything he does. And then when he comes back in to the state, he has to reverse everything that she's done.
There's no way that anyone would let Harris do anything while Biden is under the knife. Right?
Yeah. That would be incredible.
It would have been interesting if she, I think if it had gone a little longer, she would have been the one giving the Rittenhouse statement or something, which probably she would have given a more kind of fits with liberal presumptions about Biden kind of was just I don't know, whatever.
I'm surprised she didn't use that 85 minutes to delegate the border to somebody else.
Right, no kidding.
Mayor Pete, in my role as temporary president, Pete Buttigieg is now in charge of the border. Yeah. Take that, Pete.
Good luck.
But you know what? Her 85 minutes, when this did come up in the news, it did make me think. It was kind of one of those moments where I know we've talked about it before and people have this in the back of their minds, but it really hit me where I was like, wow, if something happens to Joe Biden, the guy is 79 years old. And if something happens to him, she's president of the United States.
Yep. He looks it and he acts it, frankly. People can be very elderly and kind of, act and seem like they have it all together, and not to be any sort of insulting way to Biden, but he doesn't comport himself like he's at the top of his game anymore. It's just a fact.
Yeah. All right.
Well, we'll leave it there, but we'll be back with more Rising after this.